This is Report to Wyoming.
I am the show's host, Colby Fedor, and for today I'm talking to Gabriel Green. He is a Casper boy, but now he's currently residing in Sheridan. He stopped by the radio station to tell us why he's running for Wyoming governor as a Democrat or a Dino, a.k.a. Dem in name only. Oh, this horrible flu seems to be going through Casper, and my kids haven't gotten it. It's because we take probiotics and vitamin C and green juice.
I always say God has a slapstick sense of humor. And it's always when I'm feeling most arrogant that something happens to remind me of that.
100%. Yeah, I got way too cocky.
Things going through Sheridan, I've dodged it thus far.
A lot of my friends are nurses, and so they're telling me, if you need an IV, we'll come to your house and give you an IV. I'm like, that's really nice, because that's the only thing, which this year has actually historically been they say, I'm not a health expert, but the CDC, et cetera, is saying that it's killed the most people around us. Our neighboring states are seeing a lot of hospitalizations. But the main thing is dehydration. So that's why they're like, get an IV if you need one, but otherwise you just got to fight the good fight.
Yeah, that is rough. And I'm not a huge fan of needles, so IV as the solution doesn't really jazz me up. But
I'll tell you this really quick. One of my friends just started doing IVs that have like vitamins in them now. And then it's a thing that women are doing for like $200. You go get your little vitamin drip of like glutathione and I don't know what else they're putting. I've never done it yet. But yeah, this is why I've stayed away from Botox. Now IVs are a thing. The needle phobia. Yeah.
That you ever watch that show Silicon Valley?
No.
I don't think we're too far away. There's like a billionaire in it who has a blood boy.
Oh.
Like does the blood transfusion
Well,
stuff,
there's
and
the
that does
real
happen.
dude. Yeah.
But like, I don't think we're that far from that becoming normalized, and that terrifies me too. Like, we're turning ourselves into vampires.
You'll see it first in Sheridan. What?
Yeah. I mean, yeah. Unfortunately.
Well, let's get into it. So this recording is for a podcast, and so this is kind of my style. It's a way more conversational. I do newscast throughout the week, but I think that people are like, as we evolve, radio is going to move towards more podcasts and more just natural conversation. So,
well, in on-demand listening, I try to listen to Wake Up Wyoming this morning, and I missed a couple minutes of it, and I was just like trying to catch up. Like, you can't go back on the live show and all this.
No, 100%. And so I've only been here 4 years. We've had Glenn turn his show into a podcast. I still don't think, God bless him, he really knows what that means or is, but I'm like, it just means people can listen to it when they want.
Well, and I listen to a few on demand, so at least the formatting is there.
Nice. Yeah, his podcast, it is up on like Apple, anywhere you can find podcasts, folks, but this isn't about his podcast. This is about my podcast, Report to Wyoming. So it's a half hour. We play it on Sundays, but then again, it's a podcast. You can listen to it whenever. So let's first start by letting the listeners know who you are. You're a Casper boy. You graduated from K-Dub.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So my name is Gabriel Green. I'm a Casper native, as was just said, and I'm running for governor in 2026. I'm running as a Dino, a Democrat in name only, taking advantage of some of the known branding of rhino versus dino, right? That sort of thing, as well as the fact that we're the paleontology state. We love Triceratops here, so why not? And what I'm trying to do is just offer the people something different from what they're used to. I like to joke, I'm not red or blue, I'm Gabriel Green, right? So the fact that you got two parties guaranteed access to your ballot, one of them has a cheaper and more winnable primary than the other, so I'm just using that to try to offer the people something different. Especially, like I was just saying with Glenn, something unifying, right? I'm sick of the division. I'm sick of politicians who focus on issues they know are 50-50 splits. Let's talk about the stuff we agree on.
Right. Yeah, I love that. That's why I got so excited when I saw your platform and your website, and I thought, like, oh, this is really interesting. In Montana, at the time that I lived in Montana for a little bit, folks, Bozeman was pretty, I would say, overwhelmingly blue.
Yeah.
We had, I think that during one of those elections, we ended up with a Democrat governor. Now there's a Republican governor. Actually, I need to. Is Gianforte still the? Yeah. So look, now I'm a Wyomingite. I don't even know anymore. But I always felt, and I don't think I've told our listeners this, but I'm a registered Republican. But maybe I should be a Dino.
Yeah. You should, though. And anybody who wants to do something different, you should register as a Dem. Just this election. That's all I'm asking for from you. Vote for me in the primary.
This will be.
We're gonna need your support.
I know. I have a lot of questions because, yeah, it's interesting what you're doing. I guess where I was going with that is that in Montana, I felt kind of punk rock. But then when I moved to Wyoming, I was like, oh, well, everybody's a Republican here.
Yeah.
But then now I still kind of feel a little bit punk because I grew up in a really small town in Big Piney, Wyoming. I grew up around cows and ranching world and oil and gas, the Jonah field. At the time, it was a boom back in the early aughts. But I feel like I'm socially a little bit more progressive than what the status quo there was, and really hasn't changed much. And so just even things like at brandings, me with my little hippie heart going like, maybe there's a better way to do that. And even that becomes political, But I'm like, well,
isn't that nuts?
We're hurting the baby cows. Yes.
I said something about the weather the other day to somebody, and they go, well, it's not climate change if that's what you mean. And I was like, well, I just said it's kind of warm out, didn't I? I didn't mention anything. But
Right.
to what you're saying there, I think I'll admit it doesn't surprise me that you're younger and that you read my website and actually some of it resonated with you, that you were like, I should at least report this in a way that's accurate to what's on there. Because my supporters are overwhelmingly young. I have some older supporters. I have members of existing Republican county groups that are big fans and that have donated. But most of my supporters are people who are like under 40. Frankly, most are under 30, right? Because we look around, Wyoming, over 60% of our high school graduates leave within 2 years.
Right.
And it's not just, everybody wants to act like it's just a jobs thing, which is real. Yeah, you need jobs, or how are you going to live? But it's also like, what is there that we're offering young people? You know how many young people I see just getting crapped on online for daring to share an opinion? And, how many young people, there's nothing fun to do if you don't drink. Like, you know what it's like to be between 18 and 21 in Wyoming? What it's like? You can go to a friend's basement and drink maybe, but like, that's what we have to offer the kids. So I think that there's a lot of stuff where, like, I don't like the terms progressive, conservative, any of that stuff, because I think they're, at this point, unfortunately, dog whistles. But, like, I'm a Christian. I believe that you're supposed to love your neighbor as yourself. And I think that love doesn't look like vitriol and hate, and we can tell the difference, right? So whether you're super into gays, not. Like, they exist. They're not doing anything to harm your life. Move on. Same with, like, all this, everybody's all transphobic now, and, like, I don't know. I knew a trans Trump supporter, so like I just don't buy into the like rhetoric that people want to put around that. They're just human beings like you and me, right? And so I think it becomes harder for young people to look around this state and say, this is a place that I want to grow up. This is a place where I want to raise my own children. Because unfortunately, I think sometimes we've drifted into like a national hateful rhetoric in Wyoming, and especially young people. Like I just see this. There was a guy posting about it the other day from the city council in one of the towns I'm going to forget. But a kid designed a new flag for the town. The council voted 7-1 to approve it. Is it the best looking flag? I don't know. I don't think so. But, like, it's fine. And the city councilor who voted against it went out of his way to just bash this and call the kid stupid. And everybody online was just piling on. It's like, what do you think that does to that kid, 17 years old, and their desire to contribute to their town and community? What do you think that does to their desire to, like, be a part of this? Probably tells them I should move. And that sucks, because you know why we're an aging state that has like a declining economy and all of this? It's not just that oil and gas isn't what it used to be. It's also that you don't have young people staying here.
Yeah, no, that is a huge thing. I actually just wrote about that yesterday. We get these really great reports from the Economic Analysis Division, our chief economist. We've got Dylan Boehner and then Wenlin Liu is an economist there. They're awesome. They can show you all kinds of numbers, and I'm not a numbers person, but they make it easy for me to understand. And so looking at the numbers, I think it's interesting too, is they just give me the numbers. I have to come up with something to say about them. So analyzing those and going like, oh, wow, this is a stark issue. And it's been an issue for a long time.
Yes, ma'am.
Our population has been rising a little bit. Like we're growing, but we're growing older, not bigger, because this in Natrona County specifically will be the 12th year, if it happens again, the 13th year in a row that our student population has declined.
Yep.
So just those two things, it's like, whoa, what's happening here?
I think there's also this weird trend of people acting like we're not having enough kids. And then at the same time is the people who talk about how we're...
Also, as a mom, I can say it's really expensive to have kids.
Exactly.
I can acknowledge how lucky that me and my husband got to have help when it comes to childcare. We don't have to have babysitters all the time.
in town, right?
My mother-in-law, yeah. And my father-in-law just retired, and they're more than happy to have the kids whenever. They'll go pick them up at school. They have a guest. Their old guest room is now my daughter's. This princess room is what it's called.
I love that.
Sleepovers once a week, so my husband and I could do work stuff. I was gonna ask about that. You might be a girl dad.
No, I don't have kids of my own. It's just
Oh.
one of my coworkers was like, "We're gonna taint your mug that has the dino stick." Aladdin's my favorite Disney movie, so it works.
Oh, okay. I was like, there's got to be a story there. How funny.
For a young person, I'm kind of technologically illiterate. So thank
funny.
goodness that I have a lot of people who are helping me with this stuff.
It's because you've got the audio stuff. You've got great stuff going on.
We're trying. Yeah, it's fun. Like my little brother, he does music production, so he's been helping me with some of like the audio recording stuff that we've got. I've got
Nice.
3 different people who have recorded videos and are editing them for me, which is pretty sweet. I got another buddy who's designing a whole new Green for Governor, website that'll be distinct from the dino stuff. Because at some point, you mentioned this in your article, and it's so important to me. This cannot be another cult of personality, one person. Oh my goodness, Gabriel Green, he's here to save us. I'm not. I'm just one person, and the first step is to stop asking the first step is stop asking what can my country do for me, what can I do for my country, right? Old JFK line. But the next step is to stop asking what can I do and to start asking what can we do? What is my community? What can we do together to contribute to the betterment of what's going on around us? And so I really want Dino to, maybe not outlast me in the Dino form. Because ideally, I'd like to get rid of this red-blue nonsense. I'm not red or blue, I'm Gabriel Green, right? But my campaign is going to be kind of a beast of its own. And so, we need to spin off some from it while keeping it clear to folks that I'm a Dino. I'm not this fearmonger-based boogeyman of a Democrat they think I am. But this needs to be a movement that can inspire other people. And my favorite part in this whole run has been when I'm talking to a young person, like 18 years old, and I see the light go on in their eyes where they realize I might not live in a dystopia in the future. Things might work out for me. I might be able to have kids and not be terrified about raising them. Or if I do have kids and it's not even like more affordable now, I might also live in a community where I'm not worried about the things they're being taught and the hate that's being propagandized to them and spewed to them. Again, as a Christian, love your neighbor. It's not that hard. But I think that we've gotten away from that. So a lot of this is about just rebuilding some of those bonds and reminding people that politics doesn't have to be about division.
So my only bullet point that I wrote down was let's talk about partisanship, which you're like, I don't want to talk about partisanship. So I'll just rip that up. No, but as a state, just maybe a comment on that. It is such a unique state in the ruby redness of it. But then there's different gradients of red. So I find that to be really interesting too, is you've got certain politicians really, I think you said it, I can't remember who said this, but basically saying trying to out-Trump each other. Yeah, no, that's exact. And unfortunately, as somebody who thinks that, okay, I want to say this carefully, it's always hard. There are things I agree with President Trump on an end goal about. A lot of the time, unfortunately, I disagree with the tactics, especially as somebody who believes in little r republicanism, right? A republic, a representative government where elected officials make decisions on our behalf with a powerful legislature as designed in Article 1 of the Constitution. I don't love this rule by executive order, one man in charge of everything thing. And I definitely don't like a party that says we'll just do whatever he tells us to. But you have to be able to have your own mind. And that's some of what this Dino thing gives me is the Democrats behave very similarly. People act like they don't. But I went to school in D.C., and in D.C. there's a party line that you better be walking and towing all the time. It's not quite as bad because they don't have the same singular figure to guide it all. But there's a shared ethos of if you're blue, you have to believe these 20 things. If you're red, you have to believe these 20 things. And I look at the old Wyoming Republican ethos, and it was very different from the National Republicans. It had kind of that libertarian tinge of mountain folks that like to be left alone. Yeah, they were fiscally conservative, and we used to actually not spend all of our money. It was a crazy thing. Not so much anymore. But this partisan divide, it's just such a nightmare because it forces everybody into these false categories. Everybody, one of the first things people will ask me is conservative or liberal. I'm well, I don't actually like either of those terms. And I don't even love libertarian because I'm libertarian until you start talking to me about public lands. And I love that Teddy Roosevelt model, also a Republican, folks. Right? Let's protect some lands. Let's protect this beautiful part of the earth that we get to enjoy. And let's make it better for the next generation. And that, just to keep hammering this young people point, I think the thing about young folks is we haven't given up on that crazy idea that we can leave the world better than we found it.
And that's a lot of my mission and ethos right now. And I look at this partisan divide where they want to tell you that if you're blue, you have to believe these things. If you're red, you have to believe these things. And a lot of their solutions are like half-baked at best. And there's a lot more ground outside of what they're offering. So some of this is about taking advantage of an elite system where you're guaranteed a red versus a blue, skip the line to the general ballot by winning the blue election, and then offer the people that something different. And I think that despite being a ruby red state, where people think of us as super duper Republican, I don't think we're actually as Republican as that. I think it's that we have a bunch of traditionalists who don't feel aligned with the values of the Democrat Party nationally. But because the national Democrats, I don't know if you ever tried to do this. I didn't, but I had friends who would volunteer for the Democrats in high school. And you know what they were asked to do? Call voters in Colorado. Because the Democrats don't care about Wyoming. And so, that's why they're not going to be able to stop me. It's what? You're going to have some Jackson billionaire-backed Democrat run against me? A great way to lose in Wyoming? Have somebody backed by Jackson.
At one point when I very first started, I interviewed an older governor, a former governor. So they're all technically their title is always governor once they've been governor, but Governor Sullivan, and he was a Democrat when he was a governor. Yeah. He's really popular here in Casper. He lives just down the road from my in-laws, actually. Wonderful guy, but we were talking about crossover voting. So our Democrat governor registered as a Republican so that he could participate in the election. Yeah. And I think that's really telling of the culture as well.
Yeah. And we were talking about this a little while ago. If you're convinced that you need to vote for one of these Republican candidates, please go do in the primary. And then if you don't get the person you want, I hope you'll consider me in the general. But if you're just doing that because you think it's the only way for you to get an option that you will like on the final ballot, and if you're convinced that the Republican will win, I'm here to tell you we have a winning strategy. We have a winning coalition. First-time voters, non-traditional voters, independents who outnumber Democrats and Republicans unless they're counted together, right? And in Wyoming, the registered Republican thing is a mirage because of exactly that. So many people register as Republicans because they feel it's the only way to make a difference. But this is your chance, especially... My favorite thing is when somebody says to me, I don't vote because it doesn't matter. I go, sweet, I'm going to win you real quick. Because why do they believe that? Because it typically doesn't. You vote in Wyoming, you know that the red's going to win. But it's mostly because Glenn and I were just talking about this. The blues run candidates with no chance of winning because they're just copy and paste from Chicago or California platforms. Chicago and California have different needs than Wyoming. But when you run on a Chicago platform or something, you're just going to alienate the people of Wyoming who don't care about most of the gobbledygook that Chicago Democrats do. And having met a lot of Chicago residents in my travels, they're care about your stuff. There's stuff we care about in Wyoming that wouldn't matter a lick to people in Chicago. And that's the way it's supposed to be. That's that old school federalism idea of 50 states, and within those states, constituent counties, constituent towns, right? We're supposed to have some local identity in our politics. And I think that's where there's a real opportunity in Wyoming. Because you're exactly right. A lot of people vote Republican because they think it's how they make a difference. But I'm here to tell you, we're going to win the Democrat primary, and then I'm going to be on your general ballot. But the more we win that by, the more momentum we're going to have going into that general election. So if you vote for me in the Democrat primary, and I tell everybody this, you only have to do it once, because as soon as I win, I've been very clear with everybody, I plan on going back to being an independent. I'm just using this to get on there. Incumbents win as independents, non-incumbents don't win as independents. So if I had to run for a second term, which I don't even think I want to do, I want to kind of prove that we don't need permanent leadership type stuff. You can just get in there, do some good stuff, get on out. But if I had to run for a second term, it would be as an independent, right? This is the one time I'm ever going to ask you to register as a demon Democrat and vote for an awful blue. Because guess what? I'm not blue. I'm not red. So we have actually, in addition to Sullivan, right after him was Dave Freudenthal. Glenn and I were just talking about him. He's a very popular governor. We also had Lester Hunt, who's kind of a legendary figure at this point. I'll tell you the pigeon story if you want in a second. It's kind of hilarious. But there's also Ed Hirschler, who was a very popular Democrat governor. In fact, and Glenn and I were talking about this, I think that good Wyoming Democrat governors have existed, and they would have never been elected as Democrats in any other state. They would have been too conservative, right? Because they had that Wyoming flavor. Just like a New York Republican isn't going to walk into Wyoming and win because they're going to be too liberal, right? So I think that the history of Wyoming is actually very favorable to electing a Democrat, especially to statewide office. That's also part of why, Glenn was asking why run as governor, why not build up from the ground up, and some of that is just my comparative advantage based on working in the states and what I know and the types of people I could fill an administration with. But a lot of it is also that it's easier to get elected as a blue in a statewide election in Wyoming than it is in a local election, as crazy as that might sound. So back to what I'm doing that is different, though. Nobody in Wyoming has ever then changed to independent. That has not happened. That will be first. But that's also because I'm kind of hoping, and I don't want this to be confused. Joseph Kibler and I had a great conversation, and I think he thought I was running as like a statement. Like, I'm running to win and to fix Wyoming. But imagine the statement it sends to both parties. The deepest red state elects a blue, but he's not really a blue. Huh. And imagine what it sends to the blues. Oh my goodness. You mean we could have won there if we just didn't suck so much?
It is a bit satirical, but that's not, you're saying specifically, this isn't like just a statement.
Yeah.
You're really interested in, you obviously deeply care about Wyoming and Wyoming people and the young people, as you've touched on, or you probably wouldn't be here. So
no, and my poor mom, I had to tell her to get off social media. She was reading all of those super fun internet comments about me.
Oh, it's going to get gnarly.
Read these. It helps that I have very thick skin for that. I was in a fraternity in college that was basically a bunch of real life internet trolls.
Oh, good.
So they've said way worse than anybody could ever said to me. And then I have two little brothers, and like, if you've ever heard brothers or most siblings interact, they say nasty things to each other. So it is impossible for somebody to say something worse than I've heard in my life. But also, like, when it's wrong, it doesn't really bother you. Like,
right. It's only when it's right.
Like, yeah, okay, you got me because I'm not.
I get a lot of feedback because I'm publishing articles all the time. So I've got, like you said, really thick skin. Every now and then something stings, and it's usually something I have to look at and go, that was feedback I needed. Okay.
I've gotten that a lot so young people like that I swear. Like if you talk to young people when we're out at the bars and stuff.
I'm very pro swearing. Yeah. I try not to for our news audience, but yes.
But young people like it. The overwhelming consensus feedback from basically everybody over 40 is stop swearing and buy a suit. I have plenty of suits, I have plenty of ties. But I'm the first to admit, you gotta appease the people sometimes, right? You gotta do what they see fit. And their value isn't some crazy value. They're saying, I want a governor who fits the part, who fits what I envision as that. Okay. So I'm trying dramatically hard to swear less. Now, some of our content that we've already put out includes those swears, and I don't believe in going back and within reason, I don't believe in going back and editing stuff or refining stuff. I have a private Facebook page that I haven't used in years, and I think the last thing I posted was basically like, hey, I'm not going to go edit this, so if you find something I liked once that offends you, I probably don't like it anymore, but maybe I do. I don't know. But I'm not going to change my past. You know how many people do those social media purges?
I'm seeing a lot. You know what I really like about you, genuinely, is I'm seeing a lot of political pageantry, if you will. All of a sudden, you get people with the pearl snaps pretending to be cowgirls, and that is funny. And cowboys and walking around. I'm like, you graduated from California. I don't need to tell you. I'm talking about.
Start wearing a cowboy hat, and I was like, I've never worn a cowboy hat in my life.
Well, if the shoe fits. Yeah, if that's, who you are, but the pageantry of it is hilarious. And so now we're seeing some crazy campaigns, lots of dollars going into the look and how it's delivered. And it does make me feel a little just like, it's just annoying. It's like, it's a reflection of what the culture demands, I guess, or they're trying to meet that demand in some ways. And it's not authentic.
No, the lack of authenticity is the most troubling thing. It's part of why, and this is going to sound really weird to some people, but bear with me. In 2016, the two candidates that Wyoming voters chose were Bernie Sanders and Donald Trump. There were a lot of Bernie voters who had their votes stolen by the superdelegates, who then went and voted for Trump. And that should reveal a lot to people about where some of these folks fall on the economic, big government, little government spectrum. But it was also just because I think a lot of Wyomingites were like, well, these are the only two people who seem to say what they mean. I think
that matters to Wyomingites.
Yeah, Wyoming has a really good nose for BS, probably because we've been around it our whole lives, right?
Yeah.
And so I think that is one of my superpowers is I can't not be me. I've tried before. It doesn't really work. I'm too me, right? But also, our politicians have perfected the art of appearing to be a politician, of appearing to be a statesman, of appearing to be somebody who cares about the people. This you might appreciate. Let's say your child is running towards me at an event, wants to say hi. Do you have a daughter or a son?
2 girls.
2 girls. My mom's jealous. She had 3 boys.
Oh.
Your daughter's running towards me. She trips and falls. You know what my first reaction is probably going to be? I might like giggle a little bit. I'll then be like, "Oh my goodness, are you okay?" But you know how perfected politicians
Right,
have
I
the
see
art
what
of,
you're saying.
"Oh my goodness, oh this child, let's go, shake some babies, kiss some hands," right?
Right.
No, like just be you.
And then they turn to the next person like, that is the ugliest baby I've ever seen.
So
it's like, really? Because you really seem to...
yeah, you love that baby
Yeah.
for a second.
Oh, that's so funny. I made a whole gallery at... I kind of feel the same way about Trump as you do, but I did make a whole gallery of Trump kissing babies because there's so many photos on Getty. And somehow, the gods of Town Square came and took them down because you have to, source all these images very particularly, which we do pay for those images, but for whatever reason, they're gone now. But it was just the funniest gallery. There's 100 photos of him kissing babies. And that is such a politician move.
I don't know if you'll ever get me kissing babies.
I had pictures of him kissing his own babies because he's got several, and then all the way up to the grandpa years and other people's. It's just funny. But you're right. That's a thing that politicians do. And I would like to see more authenticity. I think nowadays, everything being online, the onus is really on people to get out there and meet. In Wyoming, there's so much room to actually interact with people. Hageman just did a town hall at Casper College, and I don't think the turnout was that great.
No, and so, okay. This gets into why I'm going to win. Part of the strategy. Because I've got a lot of people saying you got to do more of this digital stuff, yada, yada. Not really. That's 1% of our campaign strategy. 99% is meeting people in person. One, I can get along with pretty much anybody in person. You can read body language. You can figure out what they like and dislike. And you can find that common ground better than a blanket statement for the whole world to react to online, right? But we're a small state. There's 500,000 people, maybe 600,000 if we're going to be generous with our population. Okay, 50% vote. And I know numbers, everybody, math's scary. I got it. That means to win an election with a 51% margin, you just need 150,000 votes and one, right?
Right.
The math to meet the voters of Wyoming is not hard. I plan on trying. I don't know if I'll be able to do it because it's a bootstrap budget and I'm just a broke guy. But I'm going to try to meet everybody in Wyoming if I can. In part because you know what the best privilege of running for governor of Wyoming is? I get to meet the best people in the best state. That's awesome. And I mean that sincerely. I love Wyomingites. We're so cool. I don't get this politics of, big budget, splashy ad nonsense that we're seeing from so many of our current people running for various positions, especially statewide office. I get that you got to do it a little bit and it's expected. And that's some of why we even have the Green for Governor page and we're putting
Well, that's how I found you.
Together. Exactly. You got to have something.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, the in-person stuff is where we're going to make a difference. And
right.
A lot of my advertising is basically just going to be come meet this guy. Come see what he's got to say. I want to have rallies where they're not your typical, I'm going to stand on a stage and spiel at you, but more of that Q&A town hall style. And
yeah.
I was telling one of my supporters this. She was asking how she can get more involved, and we're going to kind of do small house gatherings. And she was like, I don't think I could get more than 5 or 6 people together. And it's that's awesome. That's in Wyoming. That actually does have an impact, and that will grow and that will snowball. And people, when you meet them where they are, when you meet them in their home or at their friend's home in a small setting, you actually get to know the person. And so this gets back to that authenticity thing. I think the biggest mistake in modern American politics, and it's been going on for a while, is this myth of needing to be super informed as a voter. Yes, you need to know some things, but your job is to know way more about radio and podcasting and the technology here than it is to know the ins and outs of corn subsidies and
right.
what marginal tax rate on corporate gains is the most effective.
I get a lot of crash courses, though,
sure.
in journalism.
And you get to be more of a generalist than
right.
a lot of people.
I know very little about a lot of things.
That's, great skill. That's where I live. I have a few nerdy niches, but I have a lot of good nerds who know a lot about a very specific thing that I'm planning on filling my administration with. Right?
Yes.
And goodness, can you imagine a politician that admits they don't know some things? What a breath of fresh air that will be for some people. But the main thing you should do as a voter is you should be able to trust. Do I trust this person to have the wisdom and the fortitude to handle the job? And that's what I'm trying to demonstrate to the people. But with this lack of authenticity and with the sleekness of modern production, it's really hard to know who to trust.
Yeah.
And that's part of what I want to break down. And so when you meet people in person, like I work at the Pony in Sheridan right now, and people will come in all the time, and the second they've read the news article, they already know me, and they go, Mr. Governor! They're so excited because they know me, and half of them, we've never talked policy. In fact, I'd say, I don't know how many people I've talked to at this point. I've had realistically 4 people get really specific with me. Say, well, how would you pay for that? How would you do that?
This is Report to Wyoming.
Finding a hoodie that lasts through the season can be tough. The American Giant Classic Full Zip Hoodie is made to last a lifetime, so you can count on it year after year. Every American Giant piece is made in America and designed to last. No exceptions. The result is durable clothing that becomes part of your life. Snag the hoodie that will bring you comfort for life. The American Giant Classic Full Zip. Save 20% off your first order at american-giant.com when you use Staple 20 at checkout.